But all attendees will receive a certificate that you can submit to various credentialing bodies. So that's usually a common question, and we're going to have some opportunity throughout here to make sure that we know who's here and needing credit and who isn't. So bear with us on that, but we're happy if you're here for some continuing ed units. I'm just going to go ahead and get started since we have a fairly robust agenda. So my name's Kelley Dennings. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a campaigner with the Center for Biological Diversity. And I want to acknowledge that I'm on stolen Choctaw land where many individuals face displacement and suffering and hope one day they receive restorative measures. I'm a petite, white, middle-aged woman with long brown hair standing in my living room. I spent 15 years working in waste, forestry, and conservation before getting a master's in public health. I'm a campaigner with the Center for Biological Diversity, working to develop and execute campaigns focused on rights-based solutions from voluntary family planning to the solidarity economy to address how the effects of population pressure and consumption impact our environment. And with me today is Sarah Baillie, also with the center. If you want to introduce yourself, Sarah.
Hi, thanks, Kelley. My name is Sarah Baillie. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman with brown hair and brown eyes in her 30s, talking to you from my home office in Buffalo, New York, which is also on stolen Wenhodran land. And I also work with Kelley at the Center for Biological Diversity to raise awareness how human population impacts and their associated pressures affect wildlife and the environment. And I come to the center with a background in biology and environmental education. And then to also introduce our other panelists, we have Dr. Cindy Chan and Dr. Michelle Daniels. Dr. Cindy Chan is an assistant professor of marketing at the UTSC Department of Management and Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Her research focuses on social relationships, examining the role of experiences, emotion, and gifts in shaping relationships and behavior. She has published award-winning papers in leading academic journals, and her research has been featured in popular press outlets, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, NPR, and Scientific American. And she earned her MS and PhD from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. And then Dr. Michelle Daniels is an assistant professor of marketing at the University of Alabama. Her research, which has been published in the Journal of Consumer Research, focuses on social perceptions, consumer well-being, and consumer responses to novel forms of charitable giving. She earned her PhD in marketing from Arizona State University. And prior to returning to the academic world, Michelle worked in omnichannel marketing at PetSmart, where she helped deploy targeted email and point-of-sale campaigns.
Awesome. So I am keeping Sarah on her toes. Before we get started, she's going to release our first poll. So this is for those of you that are looking to receive the continuing ed unit. So hopefully Sarah can take the screen from me and do that, or do I need to stop screen sharing?
I'm doing it. I'm just waiting for responses.
So completing this is going to allow me to do the paperwork after the event for those of you looking for continuing ed units.
We're still getting
and
some.
There'll be another opportunity. Okay. There will be another opportunity later in the call for those that maybe join a few minutes late. So maybe we close that, Sarah? And
yep.
Okay. So our second poll is just to get a feel for those of you that are on the call. And so whether you're a nonprofit, for-profit, working in government, maybe you're with a school or university, or just an individual that's interested in this topic. So we'll give that a few seconds.
Oh, there we go. All right, so that is launched now.
let me know when I should move on, or let me know what the results are.
Did you want me to share the results to this one? Because I kind of want.
Yeah, let's see
Yeah.
who we have on the. I still don't think I'll get to see it though, so you'll still have to read it out.
Okay. All right, so it looks like our largest group is government with 30%, or 37%. Then we have school and university at 27%, nonprofit at 21%, individuals 14%, other 4%, and for-profit business 2%.
Awesome. Thank you all for participating in that. That helps us gauge our remarks. All right, so first, a quick introduction of the center. We're a national nonprofit conservation organization that works through a combination of science, the law, organizing, and creative media to protect wildlife in the wild places they need to thrive. So on the screen, you're seeing all of our different programs. So why are we here today to talk about simplifying the holidays? Well, the US is 5% of the world's population, but uses 30% of all resources and creates 30% of all waste. And the average American has an environmental footprint 60% larger than most Europeans and nearly 700% larger than the average person in most African countries. And this is familiar to probably many of you on the call, but according to the EPA, each person is making nearly twice as much waste now as a person did in 1960. And this chart shows how food and plastic are big categories of waste disposed. And we know that about 40% of all food waste is thrown away, and we generate a lot of that during the holidays. And for plastics, we know that 40% of plastic produced is packaging, which is used just once and then discarded. And this too increases during the giving season. So perhaps you've heard about our most recent supply chain issues, but the combination of workers sick with COVID, a lack of shipping containers, labor shortages, and natural disasters caused by climate change have contributed to the thinking that traditional material gifts will be hard this year. Depicted on the screen is a graphic from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality that shows how global supply chains can be problematic. And the common denominator is transportation between all of these things depicted on the screen. Experts are predicting that this holiday season shopping will be affected by these supply chain issues. Even buying new, environmentally friendly gifts may be difficult due to these problems. So these supply chain issues may jumpstart some systematic alterations in how we produce and consume goods that hopefully last beyond the holiday season. But we need to look for business models that shift to closed material loops. Perhaps you've attended our last two webinars where we talked about systems through the extended producer responsibility framework or the solidarity economy. And I don't need to tell this group that waste systems built around reuse, refill, repair, borrowing, or sharing, and finally composting and recycling create local jobs, resilient and equitable communities. And we see this as a both-and situation. Not only do we need systems level changes at the individual level, we need to instill societal norms that nourish connection, community, sustainability, and health with a diverse and equitable lens. We hope to share some thoughts regarding that over the next 30 minutes by talking about the campaigns on the screen. But right off the bat, I want to acknowledge that talking about consuming less isn't necessarily an equitable request. We want to talk about this in relationship to conscious consumption. So some people do need to consume less. Some people need to consume differently. And some folks, even in the United States, need to consume more. And maybe that's in relationship to food, clothing, or shelter, but even things that bring people joy. So what I hope we will instill today, though, is that once someone's immediate physical needs are met, perhaps additional material things don't always bring happiness and well-being. So take some time during this webinar to visit these websites while we talk and walk you through the different sections and resources on the screen. So we're going to take a few minutes here, not even a minute. So we want you to type in the chat kind of what feelings come up for you when you think about the winter holidays, or what emotion comes up. And so We're starting to see some responses come in here through the chat: family, stress, anxiety, but also joy, comfort. So when people talk about what they love about the holidays, they usually describe spending time with family and friends, eating good food, having fun, and relaxing. And it's time for holidays with wildlife-friendly gifts and traditions that increase connection, save money, and help the environment. So thank you for those of you that put some of your ideas and thoughts in the chat. We appreciate that. I'm just going to keep going, Sarah, unless you had anything else. Okay. So hopefully the Simplify the Holidays website is going to provide you with various tools and resources to create a low-waste holiday tradition in your home and information that you can share with others. So I know some of you may be able to talk to community members, others may be talking to students, but you could also be talking to employees or other coalition partners. So on the website, you're going to find our alternative gift guides, information about creating earth-friendly traditions, and deep dives into various holiday seasons like the winter holidays. So check out our new winter holidays page that has a lot of fresh content. And I do want to take the opportunity to offer up Sarah and I's time to help you implement this campaign with your community, school, or organization. So we have draft social media posts and a food waste reduction guide that I'll include in the follow-up email. But we can help with newsletter or blog content or be a virtual speaker at one of your events. So one thing I'm really pleased about is that we took some time this summer to update an old but often cited statistic that more waste is generated during the holiday season. So if some of you saw this on a recycling listserv, you would have seen me prodding you over the last couple months. Well, the problem was that I just could not find the original citation for the data. And I've been in the industry 20 years, so I knew it was a fairly old statistic. So thanks to the generosity of some local governments throughout the country, we aggregated trash, recycling, yard waste, and food waste data for the 2017, 18, and 19 calendar years. And the data was reported in tons, and any kind of market level variations were aggregated to form this national trend. So the new statistic is showing on the screen, and we created some other statistics based off it, like the picture of the plane. So hopefully you all will find these useful, and each of these statistics has a social media shareable that you can find on the website. So I now feel comfortable with this statistic. It is similar, but the difference is that the description has to now say in the month of December. So it used to say from Thanksgiving to New Year's, and I could not replicate that. But the month of December definitely does increase. So the final thing I'll share with you from our website is our gift guide, and it links you to various Pinterest pages that have all sorts of creative ideas. And others on today's call are going to talk about this more in depth, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate what I mentioned at the beginning. When we talk about these supply chain issues, maybe take this opportunity to support local businesses, those owned by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or your local reuse organizations to help build this just circular economy. And then I wanted to share, just end with a personal story. And I know that I'm going to acknowledge my privilege in this, but for me, I actually came from a family that loves to shop. In fact, my mom and dad met at Macy's in New York. They both worked there. And I grew up in retail. So I was dressing mannequins and stocking shelves as a child. And my father even owned a Christmas store for a year. So that's me in front of a bunch of Christmas trees at the Christmas store. So asking my family not to buy gifts was a shift. It was definitely a shift. And if you'll take a look at my childhood Christmas with all of the wrapping paper and the boxes, and I know there's this, feeling of having a lot of stuff around you. Well, in 2019, I created an online wish list, which Sarah's going to talk about more, and I shared it with my family. And my mom did a great job giving me an experiential gift despite all the barriers that you're going to hear about. So if one is motivated enough and has the right tools, it can be done. And then when you look at this picture on the other side of the slide with my niece and mother-in-law and compare that to the one where I was a kid, you can really see that there is less waste being generated by our family. And I'm quite proud of that. So we have one more poll, but I'm wondering, Sarah, do we feel comfortable based on time? Should we keep with this, or do you want to skip one of the polls?
Sorry. Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. So the first poll is for those of you that have joined a little late, but still need continuing education units. This is your opportunity to tell me that you're here. So I will get you the paperwork for your continuing ed unit. And then on the screen, you're seeing the poll that's coming after the continuing ed unit. So if you already filled out the continuing ed unit poll the first time, don't feel you have to take it again. But for the second one, let me know when we've. Actually, I think this is showing the wrong question, Sarah. The poll on here may not have gotten changed.
Oh, do you still want to do it? I think it'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, so disregard the poll showing on the screen and take whatever Sarah is putting out.
So this poll is asking, what types of alternative gifts have you given previously? And you can check all that apply.
How's it looking?
Yeah, I'm going to share the results now. So let's see, we got handmade coming in top with experience, charity, secondhand, and time and skills. We've got a crafty bunch here, which I feel like that suits recycling. People know how to reuse and get crafty with things.
Awesome. All right, Sarah, well, over to you.
Awesome. All right, so hi, once again, I'm Sarah. And I'm going to talk to you about some alternative gifts in our SoKind registry platform. Next slide, please. So like Kelley mentioned, we have the SoKind platform as a way to facilitate and encourage alternative gift giving. And in the 6 or 7 years that the SoKind registry has been around, over 15,000 alternative gifts have been given. Similarly, and the trends kind of trended similar to what this group did. So charity being one of the most popular, followed by secondhand, handmade, experience, and time. And SoKind was started by a group called Center for the New American Dream, also known as New Dream. And unfortunately, when they had to shut down a little over a year ago, they asked us if we could take on the SoKind registry because they wanted that to be a resource that still existed in the world. So we took it on, and we're currently working on some exciting new updates to improve the user experience. And in the meantime, continuing to provide customer service for those who are using it. And yeah, I just have some fun pictures here of alternative gifts I've given over the years. So the bottom left picture is my nieces and nephews at the zoo last holidays. It was a nice COVID outdoorsy safe activity to do. And my husband and I are both have a biology background, so it's a fun chance for us to nerd out with the kids and tell them all our fun facts. And then the top right picture is some homemade wool dryer balls I made out of a thrifted sweater and yarn. And that was a super easy stocking stuffer to create. That's also a little sustainable gift. And then the two bottom right pictures are a gift of service and a handmade gift I did. So I helped my sister organize her closet and dressers. So that's the t-shirt clean out happening with my dog supervising. And then for all the t-shirts that she didn't want to give up because they're sentimental, I made her a t-shirt quilt. It's one of my more ambitious crafty projects, but one I know she really enjoys. Next slide, please. So yeah, like we've been alluding to, we have this SoKind registry platform. And again, noting the privilege that asking for alternative gifts is something we can enjoy if we have all our basic needs met. So the SoKind registry allows you to create wish lists, registries. So it's really common to use for weddings and baby showers, but also for the holidays, birthdays, graduations, etc. And next slide, I can show you what it looks like to build your registry. So it's pretty much a blank slate. And there's different categories of gifts that you can choose. So you can put in your gift, whether you want to request gifts of time or skill, or experience, or handmade, or secondhand, or charity. So you can select those different options, the quantity or amounts you're looking for. And then for gifts that are things that are time set, like time or Skillshare, there's a calendar option even to facilitate this. So if you're looking for a dog walker or a babysitter, you can use that to coordinate timing of that as well. Next slide, please. And here's just an example registry. This is taken from my wedding registry a few years ago. My partner and I lived together for a few years, didn't need much. So some of the unique things we thought to ask for was a dog sitter for when we went on our honeymoon, moving fund because we were moving cross country right before, and then just some simple things like cash for a date night or something like a national park pass because we love hiking and being outdoors. And then another exciting feature that we have is a give list. So while you can create your wish list for the gifts you would like to ask for, the give lists allow you to share what you are able to offer friends and family. So this could be a good way to get alternative gift giving going in both directions. So I don't know how clear this is on your screen, but some options here show dog sitting. This is an example of a gift list for a family. And they have dog sitting because they're not ready for their own dog, but they're happy to help care for their friends and family's pets. They have offering up their kids as parents helpers, shoveling walkways, providing cooking lessons, and a family photo session. So think of the skills and services your family can offer, and that can be a great way to offer that up to your loved ones. Next slide, please. And then my little personal story is my experiential gift I gave. So this is from a few years ago. My dad comes from a long lines of Philadelphia Eagles fans. And so I looked at getting tickets for a game, and it was way out of my budget at the time. And so were jerseys. But then I looked and found you could go on tours of the stadium. And me and my sister living far away from our parents, they really do enjoy just spending time and doing activities together at the holidays. So I coordinated with my sister and my mom to all go on a family tour of the stadium. And it was really the gift that kept giving. There's a fun little, like, what's a superstition? You can't step on the logo in the locker room, which my mom did immediately when we walked in. And so that top right picture, or the bottom right, is her getting reprimanded. And then the top right is her having to sing the fight song in front of everyone else. So this was a delightfully unique present for everyone. It was also only $5 a person. And this ended up being the year they won the Super Bowl. So like, I couldn't have done this timing better if I tried. So just got it creative and look into different options for how you can gift everyone based on their different interests and hobbies. I think that's all I got. So on to Cindy and Michelle.
All right, I think I'm going to take it over first here. So hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Daniels. I would like to acknowledge that I am in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I am on Choctaw and Creek territories. I am a tall blonde female wearing clear reading glasses, and my pronouns are she and her. Next slide, please. So what I want to talk today is something that we just saw come up a lot in the chat. So we know based on the statistics that Kelley gave us, there is a ton of material waste, but there's another type of waste that happens during the holidays as well. And this comes from the waste of the $9.5 billion worth of gifts that we purchase that actually tend to be unwanted. And again, when you ask the feelings that you were feeling around the holidays, a lot of you mentioned stress and anxiety as one of the feelings. That's really common both with the holidays and with gift giving more broadly. So we know a lot of people have these intense feelings of anxiety when they're giving a gift and they want to give a good gift. But the reality is a lot of us don't know exactly what a good gift entails. A lot of times we'll try to be too unique in the gifts that we're giving. We'll ignore explicit requests from our recipients. And I think particularly noteworthy is that A lot of us conflate buying an expensive gift with buying a good gift. And so I want to spend the remainder of my talk talking about some more sustainable gifts that will help you actually overcome some of these issues when you're giving gifts this holiday. I would also give a shout out to go back to the websites that Kelley mentioned and look for additional ideas there as well. Next slide. So I know you are all a sustainability crowd, so you are very familiar with reduce, reuse, and recycle. I'm going to focus on reducing and reusing, since that is really what takes care of a lot of that waste. Starting first with reduce, one great gift to give, as Sarah has already mentioned, is to share your own skills. Now, a lot of us have skills that others would find extremely valuable. We might not think about it at first, but I'm sure there's something that you are very great at that your friends and family would love to learn more about. So whether you are a great artist, you know a second language, maybe you're a great cook, or one of my personal favorite skill shares is a YouTuber under the channel name of Dad, How Do I? And he shares fun tips and tricks about things like unclogging your drain and changing air filters, which I realize is not like the hottest topic, but it's something that I personally find a lot of value in. And I'm sure that if you have similar skills, your friends and families would care about that as well. In fact, I have helped several friends change their air filters. And one great thing about sharing skills is they don't just give to others, but they also help you out. Research has found that when we share our own skills, we're actually more motivated to learn more and grow those skills ourselves. So it also helps encourage you to get better at these skills. Next slide. The next option to completely reduce waste while giving gifts this year is to consider charitable giving. I know from the poll, a lot of you have given charitable gifts before. Cindy and I do some research together on encouraging charitable gift giving. And we have found that during the holidays or for occasions that aren't necessarily major rites of passage like weddings or baby showers, then consumers tend to be more willing to fulfill these charitable gift requests. We know the holidays is a time where we're all feeling very communal and we want to make our community a better place, and donating to charity on behalf of a loved one or requesting charitable gifts in lieu of material gifts is a great way to give back to your community while also giving to the recipient. And on top of that, we also know when we donate to charity, we receive our own feelings of warm glow of just having done something good for our community. So it's not just a gift that gives twice, it gives 3 or more times. And I'm sure we all have organizations that we would love to support during this time rather than, you know, another box of chocolates or something like that. Next slide. Next is handmade gift ideas. And so I know a lot of you also mentioned that you have given handmade gifts, which is great. So as you can see in this image, these are some holiday decorations, and those were actually made out of old sweaters and t-shirts. So you can get very creative with the way in which you reuse items that you already have when creating a handmade gift. I am not a particularly crafty person, and I used to think that in order to make a handmade gift, I had to go out and buy a ton of new stuff to actually make that handmade gift. When the reality is so much of us have things sitting in our own closets that we could upcycle and actually make into a wonderful new gift, just like that quilt that Sarah talked about in her presentation. We also know that people who receive handmade gifts really enjoy them because they know that there was love put into those gifts. So if you're considering handmade gifts, I did look at some SoKind data, and some gifts that were very frequently requested were, believe it or not, those handmade sweaters that I feel like the movies had made us believe people never want. It does seem like people really want those sweaters. So if you are a master knitter, that is a great opportunity for you there. Next slide. Next, we're going to move into secondhand gifts. Secondhand gifts are a type of gift that I feel particularly strongly about myself, because most of us have so many items in our house that we just don't touch after using them once or twice that another person would absolutely love to use. So again, I looked at the SoKind data that Sarah and Kelley so graciously allowed me to look through. And 2 gifts that kept popping up that people would love as secondhand options were books and board games and puzzles, kind of placed together in a category. All of these make sense, especially given the crazy times that we're in right now. A lot of us wanted to stop spending so much time on screens and get back into reading or participating in board games with our loved ones. What I love about these gift options is that a book or a game or a puzzle, that doesn't lose value just because you've used it before. So long as that game is still usable or that book is still readable, that's just as good as a new book. So if you put something together with friends to perhaps encourage, like everyone give each other a book that they think someone else in their friend circle would enjoy, that's a great way to encourage secondhand gifting. Next slide. The last option for more sustainable gifting that I want to talk about is something that I think most of us probably feel is extremely taboo, and that is regifting gifts. So again, I started this by saying we spend $9.5 billion on unwanted gifts, but just because something is unwanted for us does not mean that it's unwanted for others. So and there's actually been some research that shows, believe it or not, the people who gave you the gift that you were planning that you might want to regift would much rather prefer you to give it to someone than to throw it away or allow it to go to waste. So we can all start trying to get rid of some of that taboo around regifting and take a product that someone else might actually have a use for and regift it, then I think that would help with a ton of that waste. Next slide. And I'd also like to end my section of this talk with another plug for SoKind Registry. And the reason why is because honestly, I know there are a lot of questions about how to get your families involved or to how to not make people feel worse when you're asking for sustainable gifts. And really making it inclusive and making it explicit is a great way to do that. I think a lot of people mentioned in the chat that they've used SoKind for weddings and baby showers, but holiday wish lists are another great way to use SoKind, especially during this time. A lot of friends and family will ask for Christmas lists regardless. And so if you give them a SoKind list, then you're still telling them exactly what you want. You're just pushing them towards those more sustainable gifts. And similarly with a give list, you're showing people that you're interested in giving these more sustainable gifts. And so they feel less weird about asking you for a sustainable gift. I know a lot of us think others' time is very valuable, so they hesitate to ask for things like dog sitting. But if you offer that ahead of time, it will make them feel more able to actually ask for these types of gifts. And then beyond SoKind, in order to normalize this type of sustainable gifting, one thing that Cindy has mentioned her and her group of friends do a lot of times is actually come up with a theme for the gifts that year. One year, her and her friends actually chose to give charitable gifts on behalf of one another. And by making it this inclusive group effort where everyone knows what the expectations are, it helps set the stage. And there's also research that shows when we put some boundaries on problem solving that we become more creative. So by limiting it to a secondhand gift or a charitable gift, it also allows us to pull some more creativity into our gifting as well. I think that's all I have. So I will let Cindy talk to you about experiential gifts, which she is the absolute expert on. So I'm excited to hear this as well.
I just want to interrupt really quick and say, Michelle, thank you first. And two, the center never shies away from taboo issues. So I love that you brought up regifting because there's nothing taboo about it, and give us the more taboo topics, the better at the center.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
I fully support regifting. Always give to other people.
See, we have a academic here on the phone, folks, telling us that this is okay, and that's what I think that's the other part about is normalizing this, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I was going to interrupt and say something else. Oh, I remember. The other thing that we didn't mention about these two is that they are doing some research and some evaluation with our SoKind data. So hopefully you all will be hearing more from them and seeing more from them about the wonderful things that SoKind's doing. So sorry to have chimed in there. I just can't help myself. Over to you, Cindy.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm joining you today from the city of Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Chippewa, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. For those of you who can't see me, I am an Asian Canadian with Black medium-length straight hair. For those of you who can see me, what may also not be obvious is that I'm almost 8 months pregnant, and so I'm happy to be joining you seated from my home office here in Toronto. And so today I'm excited to dive into some of the research I and others have been doing on experiential gift giving. And we've talked about how experiential gifts can be a sustainable gift choice, but I'm also going to take you through some research showing that it's actually a gift choice that may benefit your relationships. Okay, next slide, please. So just by way of terminology, we define experiential gifts as events that a recipient lives through. So some typical experiential gifts might be museum passes, meals, hikes, sporting events, and concert tickets. And in a lot of our research, though not all of it, as I'll describe to you later, we often contrast this with material gifts. And these we define as objects to be kept in the recipient's possession. So clothing, electronics, furniture, and jewelry would be typical material gifts. And a lot of gifts exist somewhere along the spectrum of being more experiential or more material in nature. Next slide, please. So a lot of the research on experiences and material purchases have focused on the benefits of spending your discretionary income on experiences for yourself. But my research has really looked at these interpersonal or social benefits of giving experiences. Now, unfortunately, my research has found, and others have found, that givers are reluctant to give experiences, and they tend to give material gifts. So for example, in one study, I asked people to report on the gift that they most recently gave, and 78% reported that giving a material gift. And this is unfortunate, not only for sustainability reasons, but also because my research finds that recipients of experiential gifts actually feel more connected to their gift giver compared to those who receive a material gift. For example, in one study, we gave participants $15 to spend on a gift for a friend and directed them to spend it on either a material or an experiential gift. And we found that experiential gifts were more effective at changing the relationship in a positive way, at strengthening the relationship between the giver and the recipient when we surveyed the recipients afterwards. Next slide, please. And so you might be wondering, okay, well, that's great, I'm on board, but what types of experiences should I be giving? So in that paper, we found that one of the key drivers underlying the effect is that experiences are more emotional when you consume them. And it's this emotional intensity from consuming an experiential gift that makes it more connecting. Now, we didn't specifically manipulate the type of emotion people felt, but when we asked them to tell us what they felt, the top 5 emotions were positive. So emotions like happiness, delight, gratitude, excitement, and enthusiasm. That being said, we did find evidence that the effect can also work through negative emotions. And here we presume that they're intentionally negative. So for example, seeing a very, a tragic opera, going to a scary haunted house, compared to maybe unintentionally negative emotions like having a disappointing experience at a restaurant. So there's some evidence that it works for both types of emotions, but I'm going to take you through some research on 3 specific positive emotions that have been studied at length. Next slide, please. So the first, is happiness. A lot of times we give a gift because we want to make our recipient feel happy, but what does happiness mean to your recipient? Well, research by Cassie McGillner and colleagues have found that younger people tend to define happiness more in terms of excitement. And this is because when you're younger, you tend to be more future focused. And so giving an experience that elicits feelings of excitement may be more appropriate, may be more happiness inducing for your younger gift recipients. In other research, they also found that younger people derive more happiness from extraordinary experiences. So experiences that are uncommon or infrequent. So a few gift ideas that you might consider would be things like adventure hikes, rock climbing lessons, whitewater rafting, pop concert festivals, or limited time or pop events. Next, please. Now, as we age, we tend to gain happiness from experiences that are more common. As we become more present focused as we get older, we start to define happiness more in terms of feeling calm and peaceful. And then we also get as much happiness from extraordinary experiences as from ordinary experiences, those that are common and frequently experienced. And so some gift ideas for some of your older recipients may be things like meditation retreats, yoga passes, peaceful walks, quiet, rustic, remote camping trips, or museum or art gallery visits. Next slide, please. Another emotion that you may want to consider eliciting in your recipient would be the feeling of awe. So awe is a positive emotion that we feel when we're in the presence of vast things. It gives us this feeling of being small. And feeling awe can also promote the experience of other positive emotions and foster social connections. So some gift ideas might be, hiking, take your recipient hiking, or give them passes to a park near mountains, cliffs, or oceans, anything that makes us maybe feel small within nature. You could visit a planetarium or go to a natural history museum. You can feel sort of small within the universe or within, the history of the world. Next, please. And then finally, gratitude is an emotion that's so integral to relationships and to the gifts giving exchange season. And fortunately, if you give an experiential gift, you may also be giving the gift of gratitude, because reflecting on past experiences often makes people feel more grateful and can increase their pro-social behavior. I would also encourage you to give gifts that express gratitude. In some of my other research, I find that when you express gratitude to a recipient when giving a gift, they feel closer to the gift giver compared to expressing no emotion or some other emotions that we also contrasted it with. However, it's unfortunate that people tend to underestimate the value of expressing gratitude, thinking that it will be awkward or for the recipient, but this is actually a misestimation. So when giving your gift this year, I would encourage you to include a note or a verbal expression thanking your recipient for something that they've done for you, or why you appreciate having them in your life. Next, please. You may also be wondering whether the experience has to be shared or consumed with the recipient. Maybe you and your recipient have different interests, or you don't live in the same place. Does that mean that you can't give an experience? Well, no, not necessarily. My research finds that experiential gifts are just as connecting, whether they're shared with you as the gift giver, or with another person, or on the recipient's own. So feel free to give a gift. For example, if you know that your recipient really loves a particular sport that you're not into, you may give them passes to go with a friend or a spouse who might enjoy that more. Or if you're thinking of giving them a very calming type of experience, perhaps they'd prefer to experience it on their own. And that's still a very connecting gift. Okay, next slide, please. And then there may be times, though, that you do want to share in the experience with your recipient, and you may wonder what type of experience you should share. So I have some current ongoing research contrasting active experiences, which I define as experiences that involve participation or doing something, with passive experiences, which involve more like observation or watching. And I find that people who go through an active experience together report feeling more connected to one another. And this may be because active experiences require more mental or physical energy, which is sort of a twist on that common saying that relationships take work. This is sort of a different type of work you can put into your relationship to make it stronger. And in my research, I also did, because some of this was done during COVID, I tested also virtual experiences. So you can share they were just as effective. So you can share in virtual experiences with your gift recipient, like, taking a virtual tour of Paris together. You can do virtual travel online. You can virtually tour museums together. But if you're doing it in person, you can also or online, you can think about things like games nights, like Michelle mentioned games earlier. I have one study that contrasted playing a game together. That might be a more connecting experience than, say, a movie night. Other ideas would be art, drama, or music lessons, cooking classes, inviting a recipient to make cookies, pasta sauce, or dumplings, playing sports, going camping, hiking, or giving park memberships, or engaging in travel or day trips. Next, please. And so just to sum up, I would encourage you this holiday season to give an experience. Think about experiences that are emotional, eliciting happiness, awe, or gratitude, that are exciting or extraordinary for your younger recipients, and are calming and extraordinary or ordinary for your older recipients. They can be experienced with you, with another person, or alone. And if it is something that will be shared with another person, try to think of those more active or participatory types of experiences. And thank you so much. I hope that you got inspired with some new experiential gift ideas, and I will hand it back to Kelley.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Well, we have plenty of time to open it up for Q&A, and I know that we actually received a number of questions just through the registration. So if it's slow getting started, we can move over there, but I am going to stop screen sharing for now. Well, here, I'm going to post some resources here You'll get these in the follow-up email, but let me stop sharing and we'll take some Q&A.
All right, so I've been collecting the questions that have come through. And then we also have the ones that came through with registration. So I think the one that we saw a lot of was around conversations. So how do you have how do you have conversations with loved ones about this issue? How can we teach kids not to focus on material items? There were kind of a lot around this theme that I think we could get at. Yeah, how do you start this conversation with family members who are used to buying so many items as gifts? And I know Michelle started to touch on that. So I don't know if Michelle, if you want to kick us off.
So I think one thing that is worth acknowledging is that obviously everyone has different ways in which they want to express themselves. And so for some people, that often is in the form of giving gifts. And so I think sometimes you can be dealing with like some hurt feelings if you ask them to stop doing something that is a way they express their love. But just like Kelley's story at the beginning, I think that there are ways where you can reframe the gifts that they're giving to feel more like a gift. So actually in some research that I've been working on with Cindy, we found that with charitable gifts, if you really emphasize, how that charitable gift benefits you for occasions like weddings or baby showers where someone would want to give you a more practical gift, then that feels more like something that they would like to give and that they would feel more pleased with giving you. So some of it is in reframing how you actually ask for the gift and making sure it sounds like this is something you definitely want and it's something you'd be really appreciative for. And then I think another option is to just really make it a fun collective experience. Don't treat it as like, I'm really sick of you giving me these material gifts. Make it a more fun thing, like try something new for this holiday. And maybe you start slow. Maybe it's that you instead of getting everyone gifts, you select one family member and everyone selects a different family member to give a gift. And then the next year you're able to move into getting rid of material gifts altogether. So it might take some time, but I do think most people are amenable to moving towards that sustainable direction.
And I'll just add, like, for example, in one of our studies, when we were trying to encourage people to give donations, I think it was for a baby shower study where we said, oh, this park near me, is raising money and I plan to do a lot of walks there and play there with my children. And so just by sort of highlighting that, because I think the worry is that people feel like the gift isn't going to you sometimes and will not benefit you, and they want to give a gift to you. And so it is a little bit, Michelle and I are both marketing professors. Sometimes it's in the marketing of the idea. Or, instead of saying you want something new, say, I really would love to add something vintage or antique to my, to my home, or something that's an heirloom in your family. And so it kind of takes that stigma away from saying, I just want something used or secondhand, which people might feel funny about giving. So a lot of the times it is about the positioning, the reframing, the communication around it.
I was just going to add too, there are a few resources on the Simplify the Holidays website. There's kind of a paragraph of something that you may grab and email your family that kind of sums up what Cindy and Michelle. And then there are also some ideas that, again, they both kind of mentioned this alternative gift idea, not the alternative gift, but the alternative way to give gifts of the Secret Santa, or you just pick one person within your family to do this with. So there's some examples of those on the website also that allows you to kind of dip your toe in the water of, this new thing that may be difficult for some folks in your family. But I did it. It was not easy. And I will say we don't do it every year. So I am not perfect either. But yeah, just keep trying.
And I'll just add one more thing that has worked within my group of friends. Michelle already mentioned that we do this gift exchange every year. And I think I saw in the comments earlier, people do feel a lot of anxiety around gift giving. And one thing that we've done in the past is circulate a survey of things that you do and do not want. So you avoid that waste by not giving things people don't need. But if I were to do this again, I would probably add a column or some question asking, about their openness to receiving that item new, or preference even to receiving that item used or secondhand or homemade. And so I think if you, again, kind of normalize it within your group, it takes away the anxiety people feel about giving that as a gift.
Awesome. We did get a couple questions specifically related to SoKind that I'm going to answer real quick since that was highlighted here. So one of the questions was, does the SoKind registry allow for a mix of experiential and material gifts? It does. And I will say within the material gifts, we always encourage you can opt for a secondhand option for that. And like obviously your handmade gifts are going to be material as well. So yes, that it has that capability. And then we had another great question about how has using the SoKind registry or other wish lists impacted those who are less tech savvy? And I don't have a super clear answer on that. What I can say is the SoKind customer service person is pretty delightful, as it is me. I answer all your questions. So minus evenings and weekends, I will respond as quickly as possible. And I do everything I can to try to make this a really simple, painless process for people. So I'm really dedicated to helping those who are not tech savvy. And I think online registries have been around for a while, so I don't think we're brand new in that sense. And, just like anything, you got to give clear instructions and kind of know your audience, your loved ones the best and whether this will be feasible for them. Like Cindy said, having a kind of more clear explanation of why you're asking for this alternative gift, like, how you're going to go to the park with your kids might help them understand that better. But I'm happy to answer any and all SoKind user questions. I'll throw my email in later for that. And if you email that will be me responding. Let's see. How about communicating about this, particularly social media? So Kelley, I guess this is for you. How can we effectively promote zero waste holiday efforts via social media? And what are our recommendations?
Yeah, so we are really hoping that you all help us amplify this campaign. So that's why we have a designer that can create great social media graphics for us. And she put them on the website so you can download them and use them yourself. We also have the text, draft social media text that you can use for like Twitter and stuff. So I will send that in the follow-up email. But yeah, communicating about it larger, again, is one of our goals of this. So if you have a newsletter that you're putting out, whether that be, again, for employees or your PTA or, just the citizens within your community, feel free to grab anything off there. I know that there was one that came in kind of about like the idea of co-branding. And I think we're amenable to that. We haven't copywritten this stuff. So, we really just want it to be used. If you want to reach out after you, have something drafted and say, hey, what do you think? How does this look? I can put my information in the chat also. And we'd also just love to kind of see them and have them and maybe highlight them and maybe put them on the website so that other folks can see how people are using it and using it within their community and manipulating it. So yeah, we would welcome that. I'll put my email in the chat.
All right. And then we had a question about what are the embodied carbon emissions from different activities and gifts? And we have a section of the Simplify the Holidays page that actually does some comparisons. So 2 examples we have, one is a plush toy versus a trip to the local wildlife center. Another is a sports jersey versus a stadium tour. And both of those, the physical item has higher emissions. And I will say they don't look super different when you compare, but we also base the trip to the wildlife center or stadium on like 100-mile round trip, which is a pretty like hefty trip. So if you live closer to a city center or one of those locations, the difference will be even greater. And that was taking the comparison of like the polyester and raw materials that go into those material gifts versus the emissions of driving. I will put the link to that in the chat. But yeah, those are also some fun shareables. And we have other comparisons in there as well. Ooh, someone suggested maybe a 12 days of Christmas social media posting. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then I guess kind of getting back to conversations, we had someone else ask, what about gifts for children? So maybe we can share some brainstorming or ideas. Cindy, I know you mentioned you have kiddos.
Yes, I mean, this is a good question because, you know, with a 4-year-old and another one on the way, I know how much kids love their toys. I will say my daughter is as excited with a used toy as she is with a new one. So, you know, that because I think children, especially at a young age, go through these transitions so quickly. These toys are often, you know, almost brand new. And my mother kept a lot of my toys from when I was younger. And whenever we go to her house, she's excited to pick out one of those toys that I had played with as a child. So I think there's a little bit of reduce that might be good for children, and also thinking about the materials that the toys are made out of. That yes, there is a great suggestion in the chat there about toys that really can be handed down through generations, and wooden toys maybe instead of plastic toys where possible, if that seems like a more sustainable option for that particular item. And then the other thing I would say is, you know, when you give an experience, maybe because children don't grasp this idea of delayed gratification as well, you could give a small token with it that symbolizes it. So for example, if you are giving a visit to a zoo or a museum because they love dinosaurs, perhaps you can also give a book about dinosaurs and say, we're going to the museum, let's get ready by reading this book about dinosaurs. So something that gives them something to immediately consume and enjoy, but is also partnered with that experience. And so those are just a few ideas off the top of my head and things I've tried to think about with my daughter.
One thing to jump in there for a second on the toys topic that's becoming more popular are toy libraries. And I'd encourage you to see if there's one kind of near you, but essentially it's a library for children's toys. I have a nephew and I know he outgrows his toy preferences every like 2 weeks or so. There's a new favorite toy. So that's a great way to reuse toys and share with your community as well.
Yeah, and I'll say I had a grandma ahead of the time of she would get me, I forget if it was birthday or Christmas, but I got to choose between the aquarium or the zoo for a membership for the year. So having maybe a little bit of say in it helps. And I always enjoyed that. So with 2 minutes left, we got a couple questions about eco-friendly wrapping. So maybe we can wrap up the presentation talking about wrapping.
Well, I would say, and we did not get this on the website yet, so please bear with us. We did talk about the difference between a live and a plastic reusable Christmas tree. So I plug going there for that idea regarding decorations, but yeah, anything you could reuse. So I would say, you know, pillowcases, shawls, cloth napkins, that kind of thing, or something that you've pulled out of the garbage, like a comic or, you know, magazine cover, that kind of thing. I don't know if folks have other ideas.
I love the look of rustic wrapped gifts. So instead of putting a plastic bow on your gift, go out and find some, you know, sprigs of holly or evergreens from the ground that you can, you know, attach to the top. So incorporating nature, I think, would be another way to do it.
We had someone suggest tea towels, which I think is nice. That's like a little dual gift. Or mesh produce bags that they can use at the grocery store. These are awesome ideas. Thanks, everyone. Well, we're at the hour.
Yeah, let me close this out. Thank you all so much, my fellow panelists and all of you attending. When you close out, you're hopefully going to get an evaluation. Please take that. It will help us improve these going forward. You will get the slides from today's webinar, a recording of the webinar with closed captions and transcriptions, the continuing ed units if you're in need of those, and then additional resources that I mentioned. So our social media posts and the food waste reduction tips. And there's going to be some other webinars that you can catch us on. Sarah and I are on a little Simplify the Holidays webinar tour now. So if you'd like us to participate in a webinar for you, please let us know, but you could also share some of the other places that we'll be. So thank you all so much for attending, and we hope to see you next time. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks, everyone.